What's the process for that?
Okay.
Like, you say no, and he's persistent about searching your vehicle.
Right. Okay. And that happens a lot. And
right.
Let's just start here. Sometimes police officers do stuff that is unconstitutional. Okay? That is just the bottom line. Sometimes things happen that are unconstitutional. However,
So you still independent though, right? Now so what, do you just take anything?
I can. Yeah. But you know what? I got 2 job offers yesterday and I haven't even applied. I ain't even applied for these jobs. These people just calling me.
For what? To do what?
One's for a prosecutor.
For a prosecutor?
Oh.
I never wanted.
So that means you on the other side.
What you mean? If she on the other side, that would imply that you on the opposite side.
No, I'm just saying. So
they want me to stop being a defense attorney and help them prosecute cases.
We might need you to sandbag on a few cases.
On a few cases.
Which one would you prefer, defense or prosecution?
I like defense because it's defending, right? I like that. What I don't like about defense attorney, we tend to lose a lot because the facts are not on our side. You know, a lot of times.
You lose because the facts are not on your side.
Yeah, a lot of times our clients did what they're being accused of doing.
Right.
However, there are loopholes. If their rights weren't protected throughout the process, then, you know, we can get their charges dismissed or, you know, something like that. And also, as a defense attorney, a win isn't necessarily a not guilty outcome. You know,
right.
A win for me may be keeping a needle out your arm. You know, a win for me may be you doing 3 days in jail versus 3 months.
Right.
You know.
So it ain't always getting somebody.
It's totally off.
Totally
no,
off.
It doesn't always say not guilty. Now I know that's what TV says.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but that's not what it typically is. But I never wanted to be a prosecutor. I never wanted to be a DA.
Why you didn't want to be a prosecutor?
I never wanted to be on that side. I always viewed that side as
the other side.
The other side, the part of the system that wasn't designed for us to succeed. But after getting these job offers and seeing this money that they're offering me,
lock them up.
Right.
Not that, not lock them up, but we need people.
We need people on both sides.
On both sides. We need people like myself who's going to make sure that you're only being charged for what you actually did, that we're not stacking charges. That's what gets black folks in the most trouble.
Yeah.
A lot of times we get charges stacked on us and, you know, you don't know what to do. You know what I mean? So
and you don't have the money to fight it either.
You don't have the money to fight it. And, you know, public defenders, they get a bad rap because they're public defenders and free attorneys, but their caseload is heavy and they don't have time to give the attention to your case that they would if, you know, their caseload was even half of that, you know?
So do a lot of them be trying to get people to cop to take deals
at times,
or pleas
because
or
it is easy. Like if it's a good deal, if it's a good deal and you know you did it.
Right. Go on, take the deal. You can't be hoping for somebody to get you off.
I got a question. So how much should I disclose to my lawyer?
Everything. There is nothing worse.
Even if I'm guilty.
Especially if you're guilty.
Seriously, okay.
Seriously. There is nothing worse than walking into a courtroom, you're getting ready for a hearing, and the prosecution knows more than you do.
Right.
And you don't know how many times I've looked over to my client like,
why didn't you tell me this? Right.
So can you not tell? Like where's the line drawn?
So you're talking about attorney-client privilege,
right? So where the line drawn to where you got to tell?
I cannot tell if you hire me as your attorney, and it doesn't matter what you pay me. You can give me a quarter. okay, and say, I want to retain you as my attorney, I have to accept it. Don't pull out no
Right.
But whatever we talk about with regards to your case, I cannot disclose. Now, if you on the run or something like if you're at that part, you're a fugitive, right?
Right.
You're running away, and I don't know where you are. I'm not gonna ask, where are you? And
Right.
you contact me, okay?
Right.
I'm not gonna ask, where are you? Because
then you gotta
I'm
tell.
assisting you in committing
Right.
a crime,
Wow.
and I'm not allowed to do that.
Uh,
You know what I mean?
so,
But whatever you tell me, if you like, yeah, I did it. Say, you OJ, I'm Cochran. Yeah, I sliced her boyfriend.
Right.
This how I came in, such and
Get
such.
me out.
Okay. Let's look at the police officer. You racist. I'm gonna shift the focus. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's all you have to do. It's reasonable doubt.
So,
They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did it.
so the attorneys, criminals too then, ain't they lying?
No, she said it's a system
don't
that we got to work
lie.
in.
Yeah.
We don't lie. We present the best set of facts
For your
for
client.
our client.
And you got to remember that the other side's doing the same thing. right?
Exactly.
So here's the thing I got a question about. So say like the people get caught with drugs and all this type of stuff, right? And then they take some of their money, but I done seen instances where these people paying attorneys $10,000 and $20,000. So how is it okay for them to take the drug money?
Right.
So I'm
Where
just-
the money come from is not my business.
Right.
Whether it is your big mama giving it to you.
But this is what I'm saying though. If I go put it in the bank, they gotta know where it come from.
Do they?
They gonna ask me.
Do they?
They gonna ask me to fill. If I go take $20,000, they gonna ask me to fill out a form.
They may ask you to
Cash.
fill out a form. But do they?
Right.
All right.
I mean, I guess it would be
I
the
mean-
same. Like you wouldn't go. I wouldn't hire an attorney to say, hey, I got this money from wherever. I'm just paying you. So
No, but what
it's not
I'm
her
saying,
job to
but
ask.
what
I
I'm
guess where the
saying
money is coming from.
Anything over $10,000, you have to fill out the form.
It's flagged by the federal
It's flagged by the
Right.
government, so you gotta. They want to know where it came from.
Well,
Right,
and
when
that's,
and so what I'm saying is, if I know this, because we talking about the legal system, right? So if I know this attorney charging $10,000-$20,000 to do these cases, and I'm getting charged for being a dope man, and I'm paying this money,
Right.
don't nobody care where it come from?
Negative.
because you still have a right. Here's the thing.
That's what I'm trying to figure
Here's the
out.
thing. Most criminals, right?
Right.
Most people who are serious criminals, they're going to have some sort of front to go along with
Right.
their criminal
Okay.
activity.
Right.
Criminal
If they getting
activity
that much
is
money.
not exactly
Right.
all that they're doing, right?
Right.
So who am I? Who's going to go through my account? I'm not going to take the time to go through each of your accounts and figure out if you're paying me from the dope money or the donut money.
Right. Just give me the
that's
money.
not my job.
Right.
If you are hiring me to make sure your rights are protected, that's all I'm required to do. And the reason why they charge so much in these cases is because it takes a lot. You have to subpoena people.
Right.
You have to hire investigators.
Right.
You have to discredit every witness that the prosecution is going to bring against you, right?
To
So
give
that
them the best
means
chance.
doing background checks, digging into them. You don't want them to look credible.
Right.
So it costs money to do that.
I think one of the issues that we have in our community, you mentioned it earlier, the lack of knowledge. That is so many of us that we're afraid of the law. We don't pay a lot of attention to it, particularly those of us that are not criminals. Those are the ones that often fall the most. Can you walk us through the process of not necessarily an indictment, but a first contact with a police officer to incarceration? What are the things that you see that we need to be informed on? I.e., if a police officer pulls us over, and let's begin the conversation with, "Hey, sir, how fast were you driving?" Go
Okay.
from there.
Okay.
Or do you know how fast you were driving?
Okay. You're pulled over by a police officer, okay? Number one, any interaction with the police, your job as black men and black women is to stay alive, okay? That's what I tell everyone from the very beginning. With the current climate and tensions being so high, your job, that's your number one focus, is to stay alive, okay? So that may mean doing things that you would consider bowing down or being submissive, okay? So the officer approaches your car. No sudden movements. Hands on the steering wheel, okay? He pulls over, sir, do you know how fast you were going? Yes or no? You know, okay, well, I pulled you over because of, okay? Once he gives you a reason that he has pulled you over, that interaction is valid, okay? So he's allowed to talk to you. If it's a speeding violation or something like that, just present your ID. 9 times out of 10, it'll be done there, okay? Sometimes police will go a little further. Oh, I smell marijuana in the car. Do you? Have you been smoking marijuana? No, sir. Okay, well, can I search your car? No, sir.
So at what point am I obligated to speak to this police officer once you say it's a valid stop? I'm obligated to speak to him because what you said earlier is that a lot of times the system is not set up to protect us in many ways. And so we end up giving rights that are going to be used against us later as that incident escalates from a traffic stop to now I smell marijuana to now you reach for a gun. That's how a lot of these incidents escalate. So what I'm trying to understand from a communications standpoint, legally, again, you're right. We should be trying to survive that encounter, number one. However, after the encounter, how do we protect ourselves with our language or the lack of speaking at all?
The best thing, once it goes from traffic to some sort of criminal implication or possible criminal, like, you know, the police officer mentions, I think there's marijuana in the car or something like that, okay? That's escalating from traffic to a possible criminal prosecution, okay? Once you see it's going that way, number one, don't say anything. If you say don't consent, never consent to a search of your vehicle or your person, your body, okay? If they see a weapon or something like that, police officers are allowed to then say, hey, I'm just doing a check for weapons because I see the gun on your waist, or, you know, there was a bulge. They have a lot of excuses. Some may be rather weak, but they are, you know, allowed to pat you down in certain instances. But once you see it escalating to a criminal element, I always advise people don't say anything. A lot of times people will consent to searches of the car or their body or something like that, thinking that it may get them out of trouble, especially if I haven't been smoking in the car or I don't use drugs or anything. I have nothing to hide, right? So sure, you know, most people who don't typically interact with police
be like, okay, yeah,
right,
go ahead.
Right, search the car. But that cop may be doing something unconstitutional, or your teenage son may have had the car the night before, and there's something in the back seat or something like that. So you just never consent to the search.
Go ahead.
So what if you get this officer and he pulls you over beside you? He asks could he search the vehicle. You say no. At that point, are they able to hold you up and obtain a search warrant right there, or what's the process for that?
Okay,
like you say no, and he persists about searching your vehicle.
Right. Okay, and that happens a lot. And let's just start here. Sometimes police officers do stuff that is unconstitutional. Okay, that is just the bottom line. Sometimes things happen that are unconstitutional. However, if you don't consent to the search and you don't admit to anything and you don't say anything, whatever they find is fruit of a poisonous tree, right? They can't admit it into evidence.
Gotcha.
Okay, so as long as you're very minimal in your responses, respectful in your responses. A lot of police officers are now required to wear body cams and things like that. So if it has to go to trial, you can use that as evidence, and you know.
So basically, if they ain't got a probable cause to search it,
then they can't search it. Some will try it. You know,
or provoke you in other ways too.
And that's another thing.
They done got us so many times.
And if you know this, like, police officers are allowed to lie to you in a certain respect for investigation purposes.
Or change their wording. So it can go to, hey, Mr. Eric, would you mind stepping out of your car?
Right.
And so for us, we identify those authority figures.
Right.
That's not a suggestion to us.
Yeah, you telling me.
Yeah, if you're telling me, if you say,
that's kind of like when they pull somebody over and they be like, hey, the passenger, do you have an ID on you?
Right.
Like they ain't telling you got to give it to them, but they asking you, do you got one on you?
Right.
And normally most people just gonna come out the pocket with their ID. But if you say no,
there's really not a lot they can do.
It ain't nothing he can do.
Because you're not driving.
There's
no need.
Right.
There's no need for my ID.
Right.
You know. But in our culture, when we try to enforce our rights or exercise our rights, a lot of times it's mistaken for being argumentative and combative.
Right.
And so that'll escalate the situation. And that shouldn't be on us, right? We're citizens. We're not trained to deal with these situations.
Right.
The police officers are.
So because I've been pulled over several times, and I noticed right off the bat, one morning I was going to work. So it may have been when I was driving. I won't say that, but I know when I drive the other car, I didn't get pulled over. So I go to work real early in the morning, like 3, 4 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So the officer pulled me over. He comes to the car. He's hostile right off the bat. Where are you going this time of morning? I said, well, I'm going to work. I had a shirt on with my name on it, uniform. So what happens, that a lot of times make the situation also go bad when you got this officer, immediately, he's got attitude.
Right.
I think they also, a lot of cases, they try to provoke you to get a reaction, but it's up to you to prevail and have a cooler head. But that don't always happen because you can catch somebody on a bad day.
Exactly.
Then my response to this officer going to be,
what the hell you think I'm doing?
So, you know, but I think that's difficult to deal with also when, you know, you get them coming to the car when they just hostile right off the bat. It wasn't, good morning, sir.
Right.
You know, what you was doing? None of that. Yeah.
Well, what on the reverse side of that, because I know we talk about the officer, on the reverse side of that, is it any way for us in our culture when we dealing with the officers to help them do their job more so we can get home?
And so that's a lot of what you see happening, right? We have to take it upon ourselves to de-escalate the situation.
Okay.
And so that's what I was saying about it may appear, you may seem like you have to be more submissive than you could, because they work for us, right? We're taxpayers.
Right.
So you work for us, so there should be a certain level of respect.
Right.
But again, if I have to get home, you know, and they want to go home to their family, right? So
and I think that conversation, it's a fair conversation to have on both sides. And I think when we go too far one way or the other, we kind of lose the foundation of our argument. If we say that that every cop is a bad cop, or every cop is trying to instigate, there's several factors that make these situations the way they are. Some of them, the officer is scared. Sometimes he's by himself. It's lack of training. It's a lot on his side. But I think more of the conversation is taking place on our side on how to fix it when we're not trained to do this.
Exactly.
They're the ones that's getting the training in order to do it. And so because we're being told, hey, comply and you will survive. Now think about that. We're saying comply with an officer or what? That's the conversation that we're having right now.
Right.
To where there's a potential that you could not get a ticket, but you could potentially not go home because of how this interaction goes.
But it's like what we talk about all the time, and what I say all the time, I think it's training. Because if you look at law enforcement and you look at this, like from the regular police and you look at FBI, U.S. Marshals and all that, they don't really have those issues.
Well, and to that point, not only with training, but as an attorney, I have to carry malpractice insurance,
there you
right?
go. Mm-hmm.
As doctors, they have to carry insurance.
Exactly.
Truck drivers, you know, they got to carry $2 million worth of insurance. These police officers, in some cases, they only train for 18 months.
A lot of cases.
And then they are given a license to kill, essentially.
And you only got to score a 70 on the firearms, of course.
Wow.
So like with Breonna Taylor, right? Her family just settled for $12 million. And so the city's going to pay for that. What I would like to see happen, and I've spoken with some legislators about this, I would like police officers to have to carry liability insurance just like other professionals do.
Right.
So I think the only problem that you would have with that, you're looking at, now you're talking about an individual liability insurance that would be much less than attacking that city.
I don't think so, because number one, the settlements may be smaller. Now that's true, because they may only carry $1 million or $2 million worth. But we can't bankrupt the city because we still need those services that municipalities provide, right?
Right.
We still need roads paved.
Yeah.
We still
Right.
need lights on. We still need that. However, if we want to see a decrease in the unjustified shootings and killings, that cop is going to think twice before he pulls that trigger.
Yeah.
If he's the one
That's
who's going to
liable.
have to pay
Yeah.
that $8,000 deductible.
And losing
Well,
that retirement.
Yeah.
I don't know if we got to think that deep into it. Just follow me for a second. I'm a strong advocate of Second Amendment. I believe in
Okay.
and in fact, in our community, we don't speak on that enough, is that we need to defend ourselves. And as long as anybody in our society has a weapon, you need a
should
weapon in
have
order
one.
to
Sure.
protect
Yeah.
yourself. And so one thing that I think the onus of protection is placed too much on the police officer. Most of the time, the police officer arrives after the crime has happened. And so you have to, it's our responsibility to protect ourselves until the proper authorities arrive on that. So with that being said, me as a gun owner, a concealed carrier of a weapon, if the reason why I've never had to pull my weapon, and that's not saying that I've never had an incident. That's not a point saying that there's never been escalation of force between me and another individual. However, it never escalated to the point to where I felt like deadly force could be required. And the reason for that, I know as far as the law is concerned, that if I do this and if I follow through on this action, I know there's a repercussion within the law depending on a jury, depending on a judge. There's some serious repercussions
Right.
that even though I went home that day, I may be going away for 25 years. And so that fear makes me think twice about escalating to that point.
Okay.
And I think if that the reason why police officers, not that they're bad guys, but there's not a fear of the consequences of their actions.
From
And
the
it-
criminal side, is that what you're talking
No,
about?
I mean
Before
from
them
an
getting charged,
officer,
yeah.
if they act irresponsible outside
Okay.
of the parameters of what they were trained in doing, that there's not a repercussion.
Okay.
Losing your job is not a repercussion for taking a life.
Well, that's why I go back to say though. I think is when I say the training part of it, it's because rightfully all they got to do is articulate that they was in fear for their life.
That's it.
And here's the thing about that. That's at every level though. But for some reason, it don't happen at those other levels. It only happened down here. And so that's why I go back to training, because if you're an FBI agent, if you look up instead of you talking about like you gotta have a reason to pull your weapon. Not just for you to pull your weapon and use it, because they trained that when you pull your weapon, you use it.
Right.
Yeah,
Period.
see, I think that was someone. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
And so the thing is, I think until you give them that or put that on them, they gonna have that scapegoat. They gonna say they was in fear for their life.
Follow up for it.
And but the thing is, like she said on the prosecutor and the attorney, it's hard for you to prove that they wasn't.
Because the level of proof is so high. If
Right.
all I have to do is prove,
Right.
How can anybody say that? How can anybody prove that you wasn't fearful or your life?
Exactly.
There's no way to do that.
Exactly.
So even within the military, there's level of force. There's appropriate force for appropriate action. But I think now, even in our community, we have seen it so much, and we are so exhausted of the conversations. We're so exhausted of being mad. We're so exhausted of having to deal with it that we're desensitized to the issues at hand. So we start making excuses. Well, yeah, he should have stopped.
Yeah.
Well, did he need to shoot him 7 times? in the
Right,
back?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but I've seen worse because we see it so much,
Yeah.
and that's something that we gotta always remember, that we can't ever make this normal.
So let me ask you this. Go ahead.
Now, what I took from what she was saying about the police having some kind of liability, versus just getting the other soups, like the officer. So he needs to know before he pulled his gun to take a life, like you feared going home, getting 25 years and all that. You have to put that same fear on an officer that would take a life unjustly. Like you have to give them some more to look forward to than just losing
They
the
gonna
pension.
lose. Yeah.
You got to give them
Because a
something
lot
else.
of them being able to resign
Right, and still get
paid, and they ain't getting fired. So
right.
if you resign, you still got your retirement.
Right, you
and
get
then
what I'm saying?
we're also not getting district attorneys who will prosecute these police officers on a murder charge.
Right.
You know, Breonna Taylor's killers still have not been prosecuted.
Right.
So we need people at all levels that want to hold these police officers accountable. And I guess that's why my thinking is with the civil side of it, because I don't think we'll ever collectively as a country get to a place where certain prosecutors, I'll say, are willing to prosecute these cases. They don't want to because they work with the police all
Daily.
the time.
And I think that's the reason, Shelby. We're coming to a point that we have to have some serious conversations about some things that we've been quiet about for so long.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, there are some in society, or maybe society as a whole, that the only thing that they care about is life and money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's
and
it.
so the only way you hurt them, the marches don't hurt them. The money that's cost to contain it and to police it, that hurts them. And even if it has to come out of hide, one life is too much to give, even for that.
Yeah.
And so we can't let up, because the onus is on the municipalities that are policing these or employing these individuals to make sure they're held up to a standard, and that we do have DAs. Well, guess what? When roads are not being done, when schools are underfunded, and that is pointed as the reason, and voters hopefully are involved enough to where they see that it's a second, third, and fourth order effects to this moment, then we fix this, and the funding continues to flow. You gotta make them feel it.
I think it's like you said too, when you hit them where it hurt, because we done protested before, but something about these protests that I ain't never gonna tell nobody to go burn down nobody's stuff.
It's a different protest and
that's different.
But here's the difference though. I understand, and what I mean by that is, okay, and I don't know if it is or isn't, but some stuff did start to change before stuff started getting tore up and burned down. I'm just saying. I'm saying not nothing that we benefit from, but you start to see the shift. You start to see some stuff change, and some people that you thought maybe been on that side started to come around and be like, okay, I understand. Whether they was gonna lose money on something or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't think in no shape, form, or fashion did it get us to where we trying to go. No way even close. Because taking down statues and all that shit, that don't do nothing for us, because we don't walk by so many years and done live with them. They don't do nothing for us. But at the same time, it also made, I think, people on the other side like, man, they sick of this bullshit, and they mad. Because here's the thing, we did it peacefully for how long?
Right. And I definitely don't agree with destroying anybody's property. I definitely don't agree with any of that. Don't go deface somebody's building, or that's not the right way to do it.
But here's the thing, and I'm not saying it is, but at what point do you not expect that? After somebody done been being peaceful for so long, at what point?
Because we've been marching for
years.
We've been kneeling.
True.
Cap, they had a problem with Cap kneeling for the national anthem. Yeah. Okay, well, he was kneeling peacefully,
right?
And you complained about that.
Right. So I just think though, I don't know the way. Clearly, I don't. If I did, I'll say it. But but it's two sides. Like, the kneeling peacefully didn't get us to where we getting hurt. We burning stuff down now, and you still haven't solved the issue. So
the problem with that is we're burning our own stuff
down. Yeah.
And how does that help you?
It come back to the polls. It come back to the polls, man.
So we still stuck.
It come back to the polls.
So let's not do that. Let's not do what the mainstream media is doing. Okay. And what they do, they steal a narrative, they claim it, and they shape it for what they want to shape it at.
Right.
Now, here's what happened. Mm-hmm. You had peaceful protesters, concerned citizens that was marching. They were voicing their grievances to their community. All right. So with that, opportunity lies for an underbelly of lawbreakers.
Right.
All right. So I don't care. You don't see people breaking into houses when it's daylight. They do it when it's dark, because that's the best moment to do it. When it's chaos, that's an opportunity for
Right.
criminals to act.
That is so
And
true.
so
Right.
they mix the criminals
Right.
in
It
with
had
people
nothing
that
to
were
do with
doing
people,
right.
nothing to do with the
right
cause.
thing.
They come from-
And
they
that
come from
becomes-
everywhere.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that becomes the talking
Right.
point
Right.
is that we are burning down our.
'Cause
We
it-
got to be careful
yeah.
that we don't.
Because a
we
lot
don't
of
do
that-
We're-
lot of
we're
that
not
wasn't
burning
us.
down our city.
It wasn't us, and if you realize that, they would leave pillars of
Bricks.
and stuff like
I
that
seen it.
in
Absolutely.
various cities.
Yeah. yeah.
So here's
So they want you know, they
Yeah.
want that narrative.
Because that's just
Right.
like right
So
now.
here's the
in
other
a lot of
thing.
these places that the folks are still protesting, ain't us.
right. So look,
Just
let's
saying.
look at Birmingham for instance. We say that we're burning down our stuff.
Right.
You know a church that was burnt down? One of our church that burned down. Any church that was burned down.
No.
Any black-owned business was burned down.
Huh?
Not burnt, but I do know a few that were vandalized.
They were vandalized, black-owned business. And so to that point, it's never you can't stop a criminal element from looking at
I agree.
opportunity. They
Right.
saw
I agree.
opportunity and they jumped on.
I agree.
Right.
But we can't let them steal that from us.
And
steal
say it's us doing it. Yeah.
this moment
I agree.
when you're only looking at a small percentage of people that's doing it.
I can
agree.
dig that.
I agree.
Yeah. And as far as the marching, I think we got to look at the next step.
Exactly.
Right.
We,
So
we
that's what
done-
you said,
we
what's
done-
what's
next?
next?
And
Yeah,
so
what's
here,
next?
so follow me for a second. I think that we've said we need help for so long. So I'm not sure if we as a community are ready when somebody sits down and says, I
What you
heard
want?
you.